Hamas, the butcher's knife turns inward. The war is over. The bombs have stopped falling, but the blood in Gaza hasn't stopped flowing. New footage shows what many Palestinians already know. When the enemy outside goes quiet, the enemy inside gets loud. Armed members of Hamas are dragging their own people into the street and shooting them point blank. No trial, no mercy, no escape. Their so-called crime? Allegedly supporting Israel Defense Forces. Some for a Facebook post. Some for talking to the wrong person. Some for nothing more than being accused. This is not war. This is not defense. This is a regime turning its gun on the very people it claims to protect. In multiple videos spreading like wildfire, Hamas militants are seen rounding up Palestinians, zip-tying their hands, and executing them publicly. No court, no judge, just the sound of boots on pavement and bullets through skulls. The executions aren't happening in firefights. They're not collateral damage. They're deliberate, filmed, orchestrated, and displayed like trophies. These killings are meant to send a message. Step out of line, and you're next. The war ended days ago. No tanks are rolling through those streets. No drones buzzing overhead. Just Hamas tightening its fist. This isn't new, it's their playbook. If this shocks you, you haven't been paying attention. This is how Hamas rules Gaza, with the barrel of a gun pointed inward, and it's not a one-off, it's a pattern stretching back nearly 2 decades. Let's rewind. 2007. Hamas seized power from Fatah. It wasn't some democratic handover, it was a bloodbath. Palestinians were shot, thrown off rooftops, executed in the street. Rights groups called it Black Days. Hundreds died, not at the hands of Israel, but of fellow Palestinians. Hamas made it clear, loyalty isn't a choice, it's a demand. 2008-2009. While the world watched the Gaza war, Hamas was busy settling scores behind the scenes. According to Human Rights Watch, they tortured, maimed, and executed people accused of collaborating. Most never saw a courtroom. Many were already in custody. Some were gunned down after the fighting stopped. The report title said it best: Under cover of war. That's what Hamas does, uses war as a smokescreen to kill its own. 2010. Amnesty International reported 2 more executions of Palestinians, not soldiers, not combatants, civilians tried in kangaroo military courts that wouldn't pass the smell test in a dictatorship, let alone international law. 2012. In front of witnesses, Hamas militants shot 6 men in the street and dragged one body behind a motorcycle like a warning sign. Their alleged crime, informing for Israel, their real crime, being powerless. The men were unarmed, bound, and killed in broad daylight while the crowd watched in silence. 2014, 18 people, shot in cold blood. Hamas lined them up after accusing them of spying for Israel and executed them publicly. It wasn't chaos, it was choreographed. Some were killed at police compounds, some in public squares. Amnesty called it a brutal campaign of abductions, torture, and unlawful killings. Let that sink in. 18 Palestinians murdered by Hamas in one day. Not one headline screamed their names. They were buried quietly, because that's how authoritarian regimes work. They kill you, then erase you. 2025, fast forward to now. 3 Palestinians were officially executed by Hamas authorities weeks before the hostage deal wrapped up. The charges? Collaboration. The evidence? Unknown. The trials? Military, closed, and rigged. And now this new footage. Fresh executions after the war's end. The world is watching rubble and aid trucks. Hamas is busy cleansing its house. How this terror works. Hamas calls these people collaborators, but in Gaza, that word doesn't always mean spying. It can mean liking the wrong post, talking to someone in Israel, selling your house to the wrong family, whispering a truth the regime doesn't like. The accusation itself is the death sentence. Once they say your name, you're done. There's no lawyer, no appeal, no last words, only the sound of the street swallowing another body. This is rule by fear, classic authoritarian control, and every generation in Gaza has grown up under its shadow. These killings don't just silence individuals, they silence communities. They make your neighbor afraid to speak, your friend afraid to question, your family afraid to breathe. International law versus Hamas reality. International law is clear. Extrajudicial executions are illegal under all circumstances. It doesn't matter who does it, government, militia, resistance, occupation force, it's a war crime. But Hamas isn't exactly lining up to join the Geneva Convention's book club. Its entire internal security system runs through secret prisons, armed enforcers, and military tribunals with no due process. Human Rights Watch has said it repeatedly since 2009. Amnesty International has screamed it since 2010. International monitors warned again in 2012 and in 2014 and again this year, and yet every time the bombs stop, Hamas starts. The anatomy of Hamas's kill chain. Let's break down how this works because it's systematic, not random. Step 1. Accusation. Someone whispers that you spoke to an Israeli or didn't cheer loudly enough at a rally. Maybe someone wants your house. Maybe your ex has a grudge. It doesn't matter. The label collaborator gets stuck on you. Step 2. Abduction. Armed men show up, not police in the way the world understands the word. Men in plain clothes or paramilitary gear. You disappear. No warrant, no explanation. Step 3. Torture and confession. Reports over 15 years show detainees beaten, electrocuted, hung from ceilings, deprived of sleep. Confessions are extracted and paraded as proof. Step 4. Show trial. A closed-door military tribunal. You don't get to pick your lawyer. Sometimes you don't get one at all. Sentences can be issued within hours. Step 5. Execution. Gunfire. Sometimes public, sometimes in a basement. Sometimes your body is dumped outside your family's house like trash. This is how Hamas has controlled Gaza for 18 years. Not with consent, with fear. The numbers they don't want you to say aloud. Since 2007, Hamas has executed or summarily killed dozens of Palestinians on collaboration charges. 2007, internal takeover, hundreds killed in factional fighting. 2008, 2009, multiple documented executions behind the front lines. 2010, Amnesty condemns public hangings. 2012, 6 executed in daylight. 2014, 18 in a single day. Dozens more disappeared. 2025, 3 executed officially. New footage suggests more. And those are just the confirmed cases. The real number, lost in the silence of fear. Why people don't talk? You might ask, why don't Palestinians rise up against Hamas? Here's the brutal answer: they can't, because dissent in Gaza isn't met with debate, it's met with a bullet. When Hamas kills someone, they don't just end a life, they erase a voice, they scare 100 others into submission. That's why the footage looks staged, because it is. It's theatre, a blood-stained performance meant to make everyone watching shrink a little smaller. And that's why these executions always spike after wars, because when external enemies retreat, Hamas turns to the mirror and cleans house. Anyone who dared to breathe differently during the war becomes a traitor. Human rights groups have been yelling into the void. For years, human rights organizations have published report after report. In 2009, Human Rights Watch exposed Hamas's torture chambers. In 2010, Amnesty called out their kangaroo courts. In 2014, the executions made international headlines for a day and then vanished under the rubble of larger narratives. Governments issued statements. UN spokespeople said deeply concerned, but nothing changed, because people outside Gaza can't enforce anything inside it, and Hamas knows it. What makes 2025 different? This time, the war is officially over. The international community is watching. Billions in reconstruction aid are on the line, but Hamas is acting like nothing's changed. They're still executing Palestinians in the street like the cameras aren't rolling. Except, this time, the cameras are rolling. The footage is leaking faster than they can control it. Locals are whispering louder. Journalists are pushing stories out through the cracks, and this time they can't hide it under the noise of bombs. This isn't the chaos of war, this is the naked face of Hamas rule. Fear isn't governance. No matter how Hamas tries to dress it up, shooting unarmed Palestinians in the street isn't justice. It's dictatorship. It's gangster rule. It's what happens when you don't have checks, courts, or rights. When one group monopolizes power for 18 years, this is what you get. A government with a trigger finger and no accountability. And make no mistake, these aren't spies in the way people imagine. Many of the dead are ordinary people. Shopkeepers, students, civil servants, people who talked to someone they shouldn't have, or maybe didn't at all. How authoritarian regimes survive. Every authoritarian regime does this. Purges, show trials, public executions. It's political survival 101. Hamas has just localized the playbook. They call it resistance. But inside Gaza, it's obedience by bullet. That's why critics of Hamas inside Gaza don't go viral. They go missing. That's why journalists self-censor. That's why people whisper instead of shout. Because everyone knows someone who disappeared. This is a war crime, full stop. Under international law, executing detainees without a fair trial is a war crime. Hamas doesn't get to wave the resistance flag and pretend the rules don't apply. In fact, the laws that protect civilians exist precisely because of regimes like this. The international community has called these executions what they are: unlawful killings, extrajudicial executions, crimes against humanity when systematic, and Hamas's pattern fits that definition, almost word for word. Where the fuck are they now? Where are all those loud-mouthed, performative, we care about humanity leftist activists who filled the streets waving their flags like moral shields? Where's that thunderous outrage now? When Israel was dropping bombs, they screamed from the rooftops, they marched, they wept on live streams. They made it look like compassion was their whole fucking brand. But now that Hamas is executing Palestinians in cold blood, where the fuck are they? Not a whisper. Not a single trembling think piece. No signs, no chants, just silence, because it's easy to be loud when the villain is clear and it fits your fucking narrative. But when the trigger is pulled by the people you romanticized, you choke, you vanish, you pretend it's complicated. Fuck that. Where's your compassion now? Where's your moral high ground? All that solidarity gone the moment the story doesn't stroke your politics. You scream when it's easy. You whisper when it's inconvenient. Cowardly pussy shit. If your compassion has conditions, it isn't compassion. If your outrage depends on who's holding the gun, it isn't justice. This silence isn't neutral. This silence is complicity dressed up as nuance. So to all you bitch-ass pussy activists, I see you. I see your performance politics. You are nothing but roaches. Not right, not left. just real.